which is more than 5,000 years old from Dwapar Yuga. It has witnessed the Bhagavad Gita. So this whole show is about this Akshay Vat Vriksh, the banyan tree.
Time kept incessantly moving, dynamically flowing, continually shifting, and I, immovable, unshakable, firm, stood transfixed in one place. But still we were together, as I, from my fixed platform, was ever witness to the beginningless, continuous, unbroken, undifferentiated, consistent march of time. From my fixed place here, I have seen the arrival of Shiva or Sthaneshwar to this sacred land. From my seat here, I have witnessed the self-creation of Lord Brahma, the creator of the whole world. From my pole position, I have noticed the divinely flowing waters of the sacred Saraswati and the gushing Drishadwati river. I have witnessed Brahma carving out the Brahm Sarovar and then taking a dip in it. I have witnessed the confluence of 7 holy rivers into Sanahit Sarovar. And with this Jyotisar pond, I have an association since my birth on its banks. Drinking the water from this sacred Sarovar, this ancient banyan tree has seen history being created, corrupted, changed from this very spot where you two are seated today facing me. I can recall the history of this land, for on this sacred ground of Brahmavat, I have seen the Vedas descending and the Puranas being realized. At the time of King Kuru, this land was renamed as Kurukshetra. King Kuru was the scion of the Bharat family, the fountainhead of the Puru dynasty. His reign was known as the time of Rig Veda, giving Bharat its identity and making this land a revered, hallowed place for the whole world. I have experienced the times when this sanctified ground was agog with 1,000 Havan kunds, as scented oblations were offered to the fire, making this terrain fully fragrant. In the time of Kuru's descendants, the 100 Kaurava brothers and their 5 cousins, the Pandavas, I witnessed this holy ground turning into a battlefield. Pandavas had asked for just 5 villages, Panipat, Sonipat, Bagpat, Tilpat and Indarpat. When even this was denied by the Kauravas, war became inevitable. A war which was to destroy not only a family, a clan, a kingdom, a capital, a country, a culture, an era, but push the whole of Bharatvarsh into the jaws of a blooding, annihilating hostility called Mahabharat. Actually, in all earnest, the war of Mahabharat began the day Yudhishthir, the eldest Pandava, despite all warnings to the contrary, accepted the invitation for a game of dice at the palace of his cousins, the Kauravas. It's true that it is impossible to deter a gambling addict from falling prey to a wager. Yudhishthir was rolling the dice for the Pandavas and Uncle Shakuni for the Kauravas. Yudhishthir gradually lost all his wealth, valuables, and even the jewels he was wearing. His brothers tried to make him see sense and stop, but each time when Yudhishthir would be on the verge of stopping, Shakuni would spur him to play on.
How come the eldest Pandav prince does not have anything more to put as wager in this game of dice? Must be something like horses, carriages, servants, slaves, minions, golfers, men, women.
Yeah, yes, I have one thing. My wife Draupadi. I bet my wife Draupadi has a wager.
Draupadi is not a piece of property. But our wife? How can you even think of...
Yes, you did secure the hand of Draupadi in a contest, Arjun. But with your mother's blessings, she is the common wife of all five siblings. Can Yudhishthir cut 1/5 of her body for the wager? No. Brother Yudhishthir, roll the dice, and this time victory will surely be yours. Where is that slave woman Draupadi? Sushasan, bring her here to this court. Let the world see what I have won today.
A silence pervaded the whole palace. The only sound shattering that hush was the cackle of Duryodhan's laughter. In the meanwhile, Sushashan dragged Draupadi by her tresses into the shocked court.
Wedded wife of 5 husbands, Panchali, that day I saw but a glimpse of you. But today, as I gaze at you, I am mesmerized by your beauty. Oh, beautiful daughter of King Drupat.
Even today, you have neither seen nor have known me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have dared to drag me here like this to your open court. You scoundrel!
She speaks the truth. I have neither seen you, nor have I known you properly. Sushashan, would you please disrobe this slave woman?
Enough, Suryodhan! How dare you dishonor my wife like this? Sushashan! Leave her alone immediately! I will kill you if you even dare touch her!
Dharmaraj, you are a known upholder of the Constitution. Please explain, who holds the right over a woman lost in a wager? The winner or the loser? Don't let wrong prevail over right in your plain sight, Dharmaraj. Silence is affirmation. Sushashan, follow your brother's order and disrobe this supercilious slave servant.
You have sinned in putting me as a bet on the board, Dharmraj. As if a wife is but a material possession of a man. Please stop this wrong, Arjun. Grandsire Bhishma, you are the eldest scion of our family. Stop this transgression. You couldn't have taught this to your pupils. There's none is coming forward to stop this humiliation of a woman. Father Dhritarashtra, please see what is transpiring in front of your eyes.
A blind man has no eyes. Stupid. He can't see a thing. But we will see you today.
Stop it, Suryodhan. Otherwise, the generations to come will not call you Suryodhan, but evil Duryodhan. Oh, friend, companion Krishna, only you can save the honor of your friend. Oh Krishna, why did you take that long to come?
Because you called me all the way from far away, Dwarika. If you had said, "Come, Krishna, the dweller of my heart," I would have appeared immediately. Krishna did save the honor of Draupadi. But after this dishonor of a woman, disgrace of a lady, degradation of the female dignity, even Lord Krishna could not prevent the world from a destructive, disparaging, deadly war. And thus the 18 divisions of the armies of the Kauravas and the Pandavas began gathering in Kurukshetra. To prepare the battlefield, countless trees were chopped down and the forests burned to ashes. Somehow, I escaped death by some good fortune. Or should I say misfortune? For I would have preferred being burnt or chopped down than to witness the bloodshed, massacre, butchery, carnage, deceit, deception and destruction of human values. But the strangest and most extraordinary was the very first day. The two armies, fortified with deadliest weapons, started gathering right here, on the ground where you are sitting right now.
खड़क खड़क खर्चों की चमक चमक वारों की किरणों में हारों की दमक 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 अश्वों की खड़क 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 ध्वज की लहट 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 मृत्यु आलिंगन को वीरों की ललक ललक सेना की फड़क फड़क ललकारे चहक चहक धूने हो गर्व से जो जीत दिखे झलक 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 गज सेना धमक 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 अग्नियस्त्र धड़क 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 जय 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 गौरव कहीं पांडव जय घोष धड़क जय 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 गौरव कहीं पांडव जय घोष धड़क जय 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 गौरव कहीं पांडव जय घोष धड़क
Two warring armies, standing eyeball to eyeball, stood facing each other in confrontation. And there in faraway Hastinapur, the blind king Dhritarashtra was keen to witness the action. Impossible as it was for the blind king to see anything, his charioteer Sanjay was blessed with a special gift of being able to see events happening at a distance. The nervous king asked his charioteer Sanjay,
"Oh Sanjay, when my sons and Pandu's sons stood facing each other on the battlefield of Kurukshetra to wage war, tell me what transpired?"
To reassure and drive all doubt and fear from the mind of Duryodhan, the eldest member of the Kaurav clan, Bhishma Pitamaha, roared like a lion and blew his conch shell with great gusto. In response, Innumerable conches were blown, drums beaten, and war cries boomed all around. At the other end, seated on a chariot driven by white horses, Krishna and Arjun also responded by blowing their divine conches, the Panchajanya and the Devdutt. Bhim blew on his Pandra and Yudhishthir his Ananta Vijay. The earth and sky reverberated with a great tumult, raising a deafening noise that struck fear into the hearts of your son, Duryodhan's army, sir.
When Arjun saw that the battle was about to begin, he too lifted his mighty bow, the Gandhi. Then suddenly something unusual happened. Arjun ordered his charioteer Krishna to take his chariot in the middle of the two armies, so that he can take a close look at those who have gathered to fight against his army. Those he would have to slay. And Krishna has started moving his chariot in that direction. Arjun saw the revered Bhishma and his Guru Drona, his forebears, grandfathers, teachers, uncles, brothers and grandsons, all of whom were his own people. They were all his near and dear ones, whom he would be forced to slay. His heart was moved with great pity. Overcome by dejection, despair and depression, he said,
Krishna, I do not want victory, neither kingdom nor happiness. Even if we get the kingdom, what enjoyment can we get in killing our own people? Why? What for? Gathered here to fight are my teachers, elders, uncles, sons, grandfathers, fathers-in-law, grandsons, all my near and dear ones. I do not wish to kill them, Keshav. Even if I lose my life, supremacy over even the whole universe at this cost has no meaning. Then what's the gain of a tiny bit of land? Alas, we are bent upon committing such a sin for the greed of a kingdom and kingship. Even if the sons of the Dhritarashtra kill me, it will be fine.
This does not befit you. Abandon such petty thoughts. Arise, awake. You are Parantap the conqueror. You are duty-bound to subdue and put your enemies to death. The soul, having entered the body, goes through the stages of childhood, youth and old age. At the end of the cycle, the soul migrates to another body. The steady of mind, wise ones, don't get bewildered and baffled by such migrations, Arjun. As a person sheds old garments and puts on new ones, so does the soul abandon a corporeal frame and assumes a new body. The soul is such that it cannot be cleaved by weapons, nor burnt by fire, nor drenched by water, nor dried up with winged path.
Thus Krishna explained the subtle points of Sankhya Yoga in these words.
Kurunandan, in this yoga, this endeavor, there is only one right path determined by our nature and duty. But in an inert, inactive and unfocused person without enterprise, his mind remains uselessly scattered.
And then Devaki Nandan Shri Krishna uttered the words that forever keep echoing in every Indian's mind and heart.
You have a right to your actions alone, not to the fruits of such action. Never allow the fruits of your actions to become the motive. Yet, never turn your back on those actions.
I wish human beings learn this lesson from us, the trees. We give fruits to the whole world, to every man, animal, bird and bee. But we never claim the rights to the fruit of our labor. If we did, then all flora and fauna would perish, and life as we know it would be annihilated.
You are now perplexing me, Krishna. Your talk has left me even more confused. Please clear this fog so that I may do what is best for me, Devakinandan. You were born eons after Satyug, Treta Yuga. Then, how can you claim to know all that preceded your existence?
Scion of the Bharat clan, O Arjun, whenever the good declines and evil is on the rise, I manifest myself again and again to protect the good and to destroy the evil, to re-establish righteous dharma. I incarnate from age to age, every eon, every yuga.
नृसिंहोऽवतः वामनः रामो रामश्च चतुर्दशः
The illumination of divine knowledge comes to one with faith, one who is humble and deferential. And on attaining this knowledge divine, such a person attains supreme peace.
Oh Krishna, first you praised Sannyas Yoga, then you praised Karma Yoga, the action and enterprise. Which of this is right? Please tell me decisively.
We should elevate ourselves to a higher state of being. We should not allow ourselves to regress or degenerate. We are our own best friends. We are our own worst enemies too. Yoga is not for those who eat a lot, not for those who eat very little. Yoga is not for those who sleep too much or sleep too little. The true yogi eats with moderation, does not sleep more than necessary, keeps awake without straining himself, and does not crave for pleasure. For such a person, all worldly travails will be destroyed.
The beauty of Lord Krishna's message was that it encompassed every aspect of a life. But Arjun had another question.
Krishna, the mind is not only fickle, but also very powerful and an autocratic tyrant. To control it seems impossible, as impossible as stopping the blowing wind.
Undoubtedly, O mighty armed Arjun, the mind is fickle and difficult to control. But, son of Kunti, the discipline or sadhana and the practice of asceticism can rein in the mind and bring it under control.
Thus Krishna assuaged all the doubts of Arjun.
Foolish people deprecate and underestimate me when they think that I, the Supreme God, Master of all living beings, I, the Unborn One, need to assume this human form to accomplish all this. Such people neither know nor understand my supreme ultimate essence. Whatever meager offering a devotee dedicates to me, be it a mere leaf or a flower, a simple fruit or just water even, I willingly and happily accept it.
I accept all this, Keshav, to be true and correct. Almighty, your mystery is beyond all gods and demons to comprehend. But Janardhan, once again, please delineate your yoga and universal being in detail, as I am not fully quenched by your delicious ambrosial words.
In order to answer this question from Arjun, Lord Krishna told him about the Vishwarup Darshan Yoga.
The sparkle of 1,000 suns shining together in the sky would hardly equal the radiance of his presence. Therefore arise, win acclaim and glory. Overcome the enemy. I have already killed and slain all of these people. You are only the excuse for it, Pandav. Only the devotees who dedicate all their actions unto me will reach me. Those who are inclined towards me, those who are free from any attachment, those who have no sense of antagonism towards all beings animate and inanimate, only those can attain me, Parth.
By and by, Arjun started to calm down. And he asked Krishna another question. Some people worship you constantly. Then others contemplate you as immutable and unmanifest. Out of these, who is a better yogi? Bhagwan answered with great patience.
I love the devotee who is not envious and is a friend to all living beings. One who is kind to everybody, yet detached and with no feeling of involvement. The devotee devoid of ego and who does not consider himself as the doer, who takes comfort and distress as one and the same, who is full of forgiveness, is dear to me. I love the devotee who is content, constant in yoga, has won over his soul, is resolute and has surrendered his heart and mind to me.
Janardhan, many devotees perform yagnas, offering worship in various ways, but not according to scripture and injunction. What is their devotion like?
Bharat, everyone's faith and devotion is unique according to their own respective individual personalities and nature. Persons are nothing but their faiths. Like faith, like followers.
Now Arjun asked one last question.
O mighty arm, conqueror of the senses, Keshari Shudan, I want to know the basics of sannyas and tyag. Renunciation and relinquishment. What's the distinction between these two?
Wise and learned persons say that sannyas is the abandonment of all action that is motivated by the desire for its fruits. On the other hand, other thinkers say that giving up the fruit of action is renunciation. A sattvic or a true devotee or yogi has no attachment, no ego. He is steadfast, unperturbed by success or failure. Therefore, Arjun, give up all action and surrender yourself to my feet, taking refuge. I will free you from all sins. Now no need to grieve, great Pandava, mighty armed Arjun.
The unfaltering Krishna, by your grace, I have been made free from my delusions. I am firm now. And from now on, I will do as you have told me.
All doubt, anxiety, disquiet and worry vanished from Arjun's mind. He picked up his bow Gandhi and stretched the string. Now no one can stop the war of Mahabharata. Sitting far away in Hastinapur with King Dhritarashtra, Sanjay too was unburdened of all his inhibitions, fears, doubts, and spoke thus.
Wherever there is Yogeshwar Krishna and Dhanurdhar Arjun, there will dwell Goddess Lakshmi and victory, integrity, righteousness, and well-being of all. That is my conviction, my considered view.
Who would not agree with the view of Sanjay? Today, after the passage of many years, I get goose pimples thinking of the dialogue between Keshav and Arjun. But I get even more enthralled when I remember the mesmerizing, mighty, mystical figure form of Hari that he revealed to Arjun, the Vishwarup Darshan Yoga. In an instant, Krishna began to extend, expand, enlarge. He had innumerable eyes, countless faces, incalculable hands holding myriad weapons. All possible imaginations of gods, goddesses, and divinity were part of him. He was infinite, inestimable, unlimited, immeasurable. The brightness of 1,000 suns shone through him, and a whirling, revolving, spiraling voice reverberated from all directions.
I am indestructible, unmanifested, abstract, invisible, omnipotent and omnipresent, immobile, steadfast and as fixed as the pole star. I am the self-residing quintessence of all beings. Among Adityas and among luminaires and the sun, among Maruts mighty, among planets the moon. In Vedas, Samveda, in gods, Indra, in senses the mind, in living things the consciousness, in Rudra, Shankar, in Yakshas, Kuber, in Vasus the fire, in mountains, Meru, in priests, Saraswati, in warrior generals, Skanda, in reservoirs, the ocean, in Maharishi, Bhigu, in voices, Om, in Yajna, Jap, in immovable things, Himalaya, in trees, Ashwatha, in Devarshis, Bharat, in Gandharvas, Tripura, in Siddhas, Kapiluni, in horses, Uchchaishava, in elephants, Airavat, in humans, the king, in weapons, Vajra, in cows, Kamadhenu, in coordinators, Kamadeva, in snakes, Vasuki, in animals, lion, in birds, Garuda, in fish, the crocodile, in purifiers, Pavan, in rituals, great song, in poetic leaders, Gayatri, in seasons, Vasant, in rivers, Ganga, in warriors, Ram, in knowledge, spiritual metaphysics. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all sacred things. I am never-ending time path. I am the death which takes away all, and I am the cause of all births that will take place in the future. I am Vishrotu Mukha. This whole universe exists, but in my mouth.
I was truly lucky that I saw the supernova form of the Lord and heard the conversation between the great Arjun and Vasudev Krishna. This dialogue encompassed and encapsulated the essence of the Puranas, the meaning of Brahma Sutra, and the spirit of the Vedanta in mere 700 couplets. That's why they say that one who has understood and assimilated the Srimad Bhagavad Gita gains real wisdom, finds unfathomable knowledge and becomes a yogi in the true sense. I sincerely hope that after this night, the morning after will bring a new light, a renewed hope and a newfound energy and enthusiasm in you all towards doing the right thing without dwelling on success or failure. Till then, I will only pray and wish that you all get blessed with unending happiness and everlasting blessings in your life. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukh bhagved. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.